With new episodes every week, join us as we peel the onion on the fascinating world of PKI and digital ID.
Hello and welcome to Root Causes, the PKI and Security podcast where a pair of industry veterans talk about all matters digital certificates and PKI. I'm Tim Callan, Chief Experience Officer at Sectigo, and I'm here with Jason Sirocco, Senior Fellow at Sectigo. Okay, we've been doing a series of 2024 lookbacks, and I don't know how we don't talk about shortening certificate lifespans and DCV.
Wow, we got the Apple proposal in 2024.
Yeah, we sure did.
And
very concrete, very detailed, real dates. Different, I would say, from the directional guidance that we had gotten from Chrome previously. You know, I look at the Chrome moving forward together pronouncement as a statement of intent, a statement of philosophy, and, if you will, a North Star. Look, everybody, says Chrome, this is where we got to go as an industry. I look at the Apple pair of GitHub repos, the first one and then the amended one based on feedback, as saying, okay, knuckles are cracked, here's how we're going to get there. Right?
Tim, I don't know, I think we've talked about this before, but if you're listening to this episode, and I really hope those of you who are watching our lookbacks are looking for some real substance here, let me give it to you if you haven't heard it yet from us this right now. If you heard about Google's 90-day, which is what Tim was just talking about, and then you hear about Apple's proposal of 200 and all the way down to 45, you think, what's with all these numbers?
Right.
It's all around the value of 90-day anyway. That's really what, it's just slicing and dicing based off of that. So if you think about it, like Tim will tell you, a one-year certificate, it's not 1 year, it's 398 days. Because there's some forgiveness for pragmatic reasons to make sure that you get the full value of 1 year plus an ability to renew and deal with problems. And it's a very pragmatic way that the industry works. So when Google said 90 days, they were just saying something that was already, a lot of CAs already issued 90-day certificates. The problem with a 90-day certificate, Tim, is that you don't get the full value of a 90-day.
Right.
And so therefore, Apple's saying 100 days.
100 days.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You get 10 extra days of grace.
And it's not really 90 days, it's once a quarter, right? And so this is one of the things, if you think back to old episodes where we talked about 90 days, one of the things I pointed out is, well, you can't use 4 90-day certs to cover the year because 90 times 4 is 360, and there's more days than that in a year, right? And so 90-day was always kind of a little bit, I think, of shorthand, and without criticizing, you know, a little bit of sloppy talk. And we probably always should have been saying quarterly,
Yes,
or every 3 months, because that captures the real intention. And so you're touching on, I'd say, 2 other important things about the Apple proposal. Number one is, again, very pragmatic and considered, right? Why was the first step down 200 days? Because that's a 6 months cadence plus some wiggle room.
That's for those of you who can't deal with 100-day certs immediately.
Right. Well, let's break it into 2 things. One is the precision of it, right? To say, instead of just calling it a 180-day cert and being back in the same boat, I called it Apple
to 6
called
month
it a
cert.
200-day cert so it can be a 6-month cert. They made it a 100-day cert so it can be a 3-month cert. They made it a 47-day cert so it can be a 1-month cert. So someone had thought through what is going to have to happen to really do this in the real world, right? It was pragmatic and it was considered at that level, and it was a proposal that was designed to be implementable. So that was the first thing we noticed about the Apple proposal. The second thing we noticed about the Apple proposal is what you're getting to, which I think is incredibly important, is the step down. That's the major initiative here, is to say, we're not going to leap directly from 398 days to quarterly. We will have a step-down process that will get us to where we need to be over the course of several years. And what that does is that makes the whole thing much more implementation friendly.
For those of you who are in environments where a quarterly certificate works just fine, I think during the 200-day certificate period, it would be prudent to take the option of a 100-day certificate and start cycling it every 90 days. For those of you who, oh my goodness, I still have to do it manually because of something. Well, you've got your half a year certificate.
Yeah, and you've got your half a year certificate for a year. And again, I think that was deliberate and considerate, which is, okay, we're going to put them on a 6-month cadence. It's going to be a shocking wake-up call for some people.
Motivational.
And then they will be motivated to do the work they should have done anyway. But
Right.
in the meantime, we're not going to break them. Right? And so when you look at the step down, that says to me that that's what the step down is about, is to light a fire under the Luddites without breaking them.
That is exactly what it's for.
Right?
It's motivating without breaking everything.
Yeah.
And that was the big fear. If we were going to go straight to 90 day, oh my God, everything's going to break.
Right. People are imagining waking up one morning and I can't bank online and I can't pay my taxes and I can't, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the step down, I think, goes a long way, miles, in terms of mitigating that risk. And there may still be some, but I think we vastly reduce that negative consequence and vastly reduce that risk.
I think the Apple proposal is so well considered.
Yeah.
And we should all be very pleased that we're working with people who are thinking through it so well.
Yeah, and I do expect that proposal or something that's materially similar to go to CA Browser Forum ballot.
Tim, I cannot exit this episode
Yeah.
on shortening certificate lifespans without talking about some of the objections and just addressing them. One of the objections is, hey, there's places where certificates go where I can't automate. And I've heard some of those places being like load balancers. And my argument is, well, then you're just not aware of some of the automation technologies that are available to you.
Yeah. So a big thing that happens with a lot of the objections, because we saw firestorms on places like Reddit when this first came out. And you would see people coming up and saying, I can't automate this platform, I can't automate that platform, I got this and that. And then other people would jump in and say, well, here's how you automate this platform, here's how you automate that, right? So I think you've seen that there's this assumption built into a lot of working on the ground IT sysadmins that they can't do this kind of automation when they can. And maybe it's because the last time they looked into it, they couldn't do it, or because they're assuming maybe they never really looked into it. But I think we see a lot of that going on.
Tim, I think there's a second category of objections that I want to address.
Sure.
And that is people who are using publicly trusted certificates for purposes of things such as client authentication.
Right. Where there really shouldn't be.
We've got a whole episode coming up where
Yeah.
we're going to talk about Google's Moving Forward Together blog that came out in October that actually addresses this, and you guys need to prepare.
Yeah, for sure. That is another one where I think that objection has occurred frequently, and that response is exactly right. Now, the last objection is stuff that legitimately you can't automate, most of which is either homegrown or unsupported platforms, technology. And the response to that is, if you're using platforms and technology that are not automatable, then ultimately you have a business continuity, a robustness, and a security problem that badly needs addressing. And it needs addressing anyway. Let's kill two birds with one stone.
Every certificate has to be a managed certificate. And that's not just the CA saying it. That is the root stores absolutely saying it.
Yeah.
Because if there's a certificate that's been misissued by any of the CAs for any reason, that certificate needs to be revoked. If there's a key compromise,
Let's talk about key compromise, right? Because then we'll get into debates about misissuance. Key compromise.
key compromise.
If bad guys have your private keys, they have your private keys. The math is the math. The bad guys are going to do the bad things, and they're not going to hold back because they feel sorry for you. If you cannot cycle those certificates out, you're just a sitting duck. You have to be able to. It is a must.
Every certificate needs to be a managed certificate. If I could just put that on a loop and repeat it 100 times in one podcast, I would, Tim. I think that's the message all of you need to be listening to.
Yeah. So connected to the shortening certificate lifespans, also there was a DCV step down. This is very important because one of the other things we've talked about a lot is the browser's desire in the world of TLS, I think correctly, to marry certificate ownership to domain control in a very tight way. And I'm not going to go through the math. I've done it in other episodes. But you could get a legitimately issued, you could be owning a legitimately issued public certificate today for a domain that you had not controlled any time in the last 2 years. And that's just not all right. And so we see accompanying the cert lifespan step down. We see a DCV reuse period step down, going down ultimately to 10 days by 2018. And 2028, not 2018, by 2028. And that is also a major change in a year of major changes to DCV, a year where MPIC was passed as a requirement and work started to happen, and it's going to flow into hard requirements next year, where CAs are going to be expected to do it and act on the results, and then it's going to phase up in its impact over the next several years. So a year of MPIC, a year of deprecation of WHOIS as a source for email DCV, right? So we're removing WHOIS as a source for email DCV. Also an important, that's been around since the very beginning, right? That's one of the oldest things we've got in the web PKI. And a strong move toward complete deprecation of email-based DCV at all. And so all of this stuff has been going on in 2024. Big year for DCV reform.
So, Tim, let's back up and talk about one of the reasons why we trust this whole ecosystem. And it comes down to three things. CAB Forum BR rules, of which you're a big piece of. CAB Forum BR rules, number one. CT logs,
Sure.
number two.
Yep.
And I would say the one thing that needed to be shored up, just because there's threats and there's better thinking, was DCV. Yeah. And I think that those are the three legs of the stool, that the reason why this ecosystem is trustable and why it works. And I think that this latest set of 2024 shoring up of DCV, of all the things you just said, I think we're exiting 2024 in a good place.
Yep. So big year for both of those topics.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Thanks, Jay. This has been Who Caused This.